Hello everyone, Grim here, and as you can probably tell, it's time for me to read you another story. This one is titled, Welcome to Theta-Mart, The Page, Part 1, posted by the user AnfieldMysteries to the subreddit r/NoSleep. Now, as usual with these videos, please sit back, relax, and let's enjoy. I'm sure everyone can remember their retail days, the periods of our lives when we worked long hours for shit pay and at the mercy of every dickhead who felt a soy sauce shortage was a legitimate reason to ruin somebody's shift. I'm still unfortunately eyeballs deep in that phase of my life. I sure wish that soccer moms with bad haircuts or thumb-shaped juice heads with little man syndrome were the biggest of my problems. We all make jokes about working retail being hell. Some even compare it to purgatory, a between space where time passes at a painstaking crawl. It's nothing compared to this. I had my back pressed against a cold refrigerator in the showroom. I was starting to get the hang of this fucked up version of hide and seek. I could hear a subtle but distinct clicking of the creature as it made its way up the aisles, meticulously searching. It knew I was here. I could see the arc of its back over high shelves and its gangly limbs clinging to the beams to keep its balance. I held my hands over my mouth and tried to steady my breath as the creature advanced. A vicious sludge oozed from its skin, sounding like tar when it dropped to the floor. The sludge eating away at everything it touched like a corrosive piranha solution. It smelled like hot floor at a dumpster fire, like burnt hair, warm beer, and melted plastic, with a nose-curling sourness of spoiled food. It was getting too close for comfort this time. The refrigerators rattled as I saw a meaty clawed hand the size of a large dog cling to their tops, followed by the sound of ragged breath. The smell grew heavier as the hand slapped from one fridge to another until it settled atop of mine. It sat there just long enough to wonder if I had been found before it, along with the smell, vanished entirely. Oh, thank God. I waited for my heart to move from hammering in my throat to back in my chest. I peeked my head out from behind the fridge to see no one. I was alone again. Management nearly got you this time, man. Or at least I thought I was. I about pissed myself and quickly turned around to find a mannequin standing within shoe-throwing distance in an ugly sweater and a pair of fitted khakis. Fred, Jesus Christ, I told you to start announcing yourself. I mean, I could have, but you would have ended up at Show's lunch. I know what everyone would be thinking right about now. This guy is hiding from monsters and talking to mannequins. He's probably nuts. And yeah, you'd probably be right. But consider this first. I work retail. I deserve to be crazy, so reserve all judgments for now. The mannequin, Fred, swung his body from side to side, stiffly waddling over to me. She got Juan, poor bastard didn't even see her coming, he said. Fred looked like a life-size Ken doll and spoke with a New York accent. His mouth never moved though. It was permanently fixed into a smile, filled with a row of perfectly straight, white-painted teeth. But his eyes, those moved. They seemed to follow you. It was like one of those creepy old paintings where the eyes seemed to track you around the room no matter where you went. It was a little creepy. I kinda liked Juan. He didn't give me as many stink eyes as all the others. Well, he ain't got no eyes to stink with anymore. Squashed like a watermelon. Splat! Cheryl didn't even stop to look at him. Ugh. Hey, better him than us. Us. It won't eat you. It would be like eating a plastic bead, I said as I began to reface the water filters. I mean, yeah, but I would give her indigestion if she ever does. How noble of you. If Fred had been endowed with the gift of face muscles, he'd probably be wearing a shit-eating grin. It ain't easy being a hero. I listened again to see if Cheryl was still around. Can never be too careful with manager 5 ears to the ground, Cheryl. The screams in the distance told me it was somewhere in household chemicals, which meant there was around 4 miles of store between us. That's far enough. The hellscape where I work is called Theta-Mart. It was supposed to be a super shopping centre, best described as if a mall in Costco had a baby. But this baby was unfortunately disfigured so horribly it broke and disregarded the laws of the reality we live in. All that to say, Theta-Mart is like a retail affair baby if H.P. Lovecraft was the mistress. It's full of impossible creatures, monsters, and products an insane person couldn't even conjure in their strangest fever dreams. Everything inside Theta-Mart was white. A stark, sterile white from floor to ceiling, with shelves that stand several tall men high. There's a lingering smell of cheap plastic in here, and the only thing piercing the constant mind-numbing silence is the distant sound of tiny elevator music. It comes from everywhere and nowhere all at once. The tune feels so familiar, just not enough to place or follow. If that wasn't chilling enough, the screams that abruptly break the silent hours when management is close by is frightening enough to start the heart of a dead man. Which is why it was so strange when, first, a momentary blanket of silence fell over the store like what they do for memorials. It was an oppressive, drawn-out silence before being broken by a voice erupting from invisible speakers.
Max, there's a call waiting for you on.
The page was followed by a shrill garble that sounded like Jabba the Hutt was choking on rocks before it was silent again. I look at Fred. What the fuck was that? You got a page, man. You gotta answer it. How? There's no phone in this department. The nearest working phone that I knew of was in electronics, which was about 6 or so miles away. I just cut my losses and throw myself from the highest shelf. There's no way I'd make it without being maimed or eaten before I get there. As absurd as this place is, I don't think treeking over toys and finding a place called Elmo and Friends smartphone would cut it either. Well, it won't stop paging you until you answer it. And trust me, you're gonna want to answer it. What happens if I don't? He doesn't respond, and instead stares at me silently for a moment. Hello? He lunges forward and snatches my phone. Hey! I swiped to get it back, but Fred was quick for a guy with limited mobility. Sorry, pal, you'll thank me later. He began to speed waddle away. I actually had to run after him to keep up, which was impressive considering how his legs only moved in 2 directions. Fred, Fred, I can't leave without my... He disappeared, heading deeper into the store. Man, considering the short time I've been here, I've learned a lot about this place and how it operates. Sort of. In the grand scheme of things, I probably know absolutely dipsquat. Because of these dubious guidelines, I've made it far enough to share this. 1. Stay away from the other associates. They may look like people or potential survival partners, perhaps the last anchor you could hold steadfast to insanity with, but they are absolutely, definitely not. Far from it. Avoid them at all costs. They might have been human once, but they certainly aren't anymore. 2. The areas that turn yellow, or the zones of the store that are more decrepit than the other areas, are more prone to management activity. That's what Cheryl is. The denizens of this place are known as management. The higher the status, the nastier they are. 3. Be sure to follow the first 2 rules, no matter what. It makes life a lot easier. Funny enough, Fred actually bestowed upon me a lot of the knowledge I've accumulated about this place. Which pissed me off even more when I had to actively choose to break those 3 rules. Fred, this isn't funny. I don't have time for your crap. I continued walking at a brisk pace, following the distant taps of hollow dress shoes. All around me, the fluorescent lights became yellower, more tarnished. They flicker and hum overhead, and some are blown out completely. There are pillows and overturned furniture, soggy boxes and broken glass strewn about the linoleum. The smell of stale old couch stuffing and mildew penetrated the air and hung like a wet blanket, making it slightly uncomfortable to breathe. I walked beneath the hanging sign saying in bold blue letters, "Home and Decor." Oh crap. I found myself reconsidering how important my phone really was. I could just buy a new one. Sure, the other one isn't even paid off yet, but is it really worth being eaten or squashed or whatever it is monsters do to people? A scrawny college student sustained purely of ramen and espresso can't taste that good, right? Just when I talked myself into abandoning my phone with every puppy pic of my dog I've ever taken, I felt eyes fixed on me. I had been spotted. Maxwell. Shit. I very slowly turn around to find looming over me was Nosferatu. Well, he's not actually Nosferatu, but he could have had me fooled if this were a spirited Halloween. Ralph, you look, alive today? Ralph's skin clung to his skeletal frame like wet toilet paper. The white of his eyes were as sunken and yellow as the lights around us, and his apron, identical to mine, covered in various stains of several concerning colors. I tried my best not to stare at them as he leaned down and hovered close to my face. His irises glistened a gross milky white with something swirling behind their film. "Why are you in my department, Maxwell?" Now would have been an amazing time to be great at lying, but I wasn't much of a talker at the best of times. My eyes began to frantically dart around for a sign or milk. Milk? Yeah, milk. Can't have my bones breaking on the job, right? I made an attempt at a playful punch, but Ralph was so much squishier than he should have been. I felt my stomach lurch when my fist sunk through his arm and into his torso like a damn slime-filled stress ball. Except instead of alleviating stress, he makes it so much worse. He stared at me for a moment in unimpressed silence. Ralph was a supervisor. Not only that, but I managed to piss him off twice in my first week. Needless to say, he's far from my biggest fan. He also makes me really uncomfortable. You are heading in the wrong direction. Oh, really? Oh, I'm still getting turned around. 3 weeks and I still have no sense of direction. Typical Max. I took a step back. Well, I better be on my way now. Looks like I've got ways to walk. I'll call for assistance. Nope. Why's that? You're gross. He said nothing. I mean, grossly understaffed. You look like you're barely holding on with these dang staff shortages, right? I don't want to impose. Nailed it. He continued eyeballing me for a tiny eternity. All I could do was stand there and sweat. Maybe if I didn't move, he would leave, like a T-Rex. Unfortunately, Ralph didn't follow predatory chicken rules. He took a step back and very, very slowly started to open his mouth. It stretched and cracked like the Conjuring house with osteoporosis. His teeth were rotting and twisted, and his tongue was a sickly purple color. If I wasn't running on 3 hours of sleep and 2 Red Bulls, I probably would have started screaming like a kid in a haunted Chuck E. Cheese. Just as Ralph took an impressively deep breath to shriek or howl or whatever awful sounds supervisors make to summon managers, I saw my phone fly out of seemingly nowhere with the momentum of a bullet. It twirled wildly like an ISO throwing star and very effectively caved in the right side of Ralph's face. He fell on the floor with a tragic plopping sound that reminded me of a soggy banana peel landing in a puddle. Booyah! Fred sprung out from behind a love seat and started doing an awkward victory dance. I should have tried out for the Yankees! Hopefully you've got some reflexes to go with that throwing arm. You're lucky I don't do the same for you running off with my phone. Ah, come on, Maxie. I had to get you moving somehow. I didn't respond. Instead, I leaned down and plucked my phone from Ralph's caved-in dome. It came free with a moist snick. Thankfully, there was no grey matter or blood, just a gross and slightly greasy film where his skin and my phone made contact. If I have to touch one more bodily excretion that isn't mine one more time this week. Fred slowly stuck his foot into Ralph's side and laughed when the old man made a sound like a deflated sponge cake. You get used to it. Now, let's get the show back on the road. No. I need to go back to appliances where it's safe. I haven't even been over here for 5 minutes and Ralph was already trying to hand me a pink slip from life. Fred somehow managed to blow a raspberry without his lips moving and pat my shoulder. He wishes he had the clearance to do that. All he can do is hoop and holler. Ain't that right, Ralphie? Ralph, now drooling, said nothing and only continued to make more squishy, deflating sounds. Is he okay? Oh yeah, I saw him get crushed by a shelf once. He's even been sat on by Bonnie, and he still got up. He was totally fine too. I'm sure he enjoyed getting sat on more though, sly dog. Wow. I know, right? He's all about that bass. Respect that. Oh, no. I mean, does he just not die, or does he not have bones? He looked back down at Ralph and then back at me. Well, he's got something. How the heck did he get a squash-proof card? Ha! What, you want one too? Trust me, you don't want whatever he's got. Shit, it's probably terminal. What's that mean? Fred did something like he was trying to shrug, trying and failing. He also had the nerve to take another swipe at me in an attempt to grab my phone again. I quickly stuck my phone in the air and slapped his plastic hand away. Hey! God, you're worse than a 3-year-old today. What the hell, man? I've seen Fred do some pretty weird stuff, aside from the living mannequin thing. All it took was a fraction of a second for me to blink for Fred to be gone with my fucking phone again. I looked at my empty hand, then over my shoulder at him, booking it down the aisles. Just before I could sputter the creative string of swear words I had threaded together just for Fred's ears, the store was plunged into silence again. Oh no. It lasted a few seconds longer than before.
Max, there is a call waiting for you on.
The horrible sound it made was louder, so much louder this time. I slapped my hands over my ears. I could feel the sound vibrating in my chest. It only lasted for a moment, but that's all it took to leave me with an annoying ring in my ears. So, that's what he meant. Now, begrudgingly, coming to terms that this shift was going to probably be a very dangerous trek across the store, I looked back at the now deflated Ralph. Within moments of being clocked with my phone, he looked like a snake was running around in a human suit, and he shed him at some point. I almost wanted to feel bad, but he was a dick, and I thought better of it. Instead, I opted to start going through his pockets. Let's see. Food tokens, box cutter, and some new blades. I'm sure those will come in handy. I had made the mistake of losing my pocket knife on my first day to the disembodied appendages that live under the shelves in aisle 12 and 16. Don't ask. That is a story for another time. I clicked up the blade and the thing extended to almost 4 inches long. How many newbies like me have you used this thing on, Ralph? 'Cause I certainly haven't seen you open any boxes. I stood, gave him one last squishy nudge with my foot, and then went to find that stupid mannequin. The home decor apartment almost reminded me a bit of a decrepit thrift store. The musty smell of old used things and old used people. Ralph fitted in perfectly with the washed out background that was bathed in piss yellow. But I also couldn't help but wonder, why did this side of the store look as awful as it did? There were even water stains on the fiberglass ceiling tiles way up above. Everything I've seen in the store looked awful in some capacity, but the level of awfulness here was borderline ridiculous. My job had me stuck in different departments every shift. Something referred to as a floater. Basically, I was being trained in a bit of everything. The one who hired me told me that I would have this position until I found my place. I thought that statement was strange because I was only supposed to be here for about 3 months. At one point, I was certain I would stay longer. $20 an hour for a retail gig sounded like cake, but now I find myself wondering if I'll even last that long.
You've been standing there for an awfully long time, Maxwell.
It was a woman's voice. My attention snapped back into the moment so hard I nearly got whiplash. Wet and broken glass crunched under my feet as I spun. I pulled out my new box cutter, holding it out in front of me. It's Max, and a guy can't take a second to collect his thoughts.
Sure you can, but standing in the middle of an aisle, muttering to yourself, might be considered a little crazy, wouldn't you say?
A massive spider, as big as a Volkswagen Beetle, slowly peered over the shelves that had been covered in ugly pillows and rested atop of it. She had a shiny black body and long, sharp legs that still shimmered like obsidian spears in the low light and easily extended around 17 feet. Her 8 eyes were a deep red, and her front 2 legs ended in unmistakably human hands, with manicured nails. Janice, from what I understand, is one of the vendors. She's also one of the few creatures in here I don't find myself running and screaming from, shockingly. She's just kind of a bitch. Considering the things that go on here, I'm not exactly concerned with what people think of me, I say, slowly aiming the box cutter away.
Oh, not enjoying your position? You seemed so enthusiastic a few weeks ago.
Why in God's name do you think I would be having fun in this place? And I had no idea the shit I'd have to deal with a few weeks ago. This is entrapment. It's illegal. Janice tapped her perfectly maintained nails against the metal shelves like an irritated Disney villain, making annoying tink sounds.
Still on that, are we?
You're not the brightest, are you? But a busted, broke college student down on his luck with $5 to his name. People like you thrive in extreme situations. You adapt. No. People who get thrown into shit like this die.
Well, seeing how you were hired here, no one will miss you if you do.
Ouch.
It's true.
I know it's true, but you didn't have to say it like that.
ThetaMart, as well as being a space between, has the ability to bring out something in people they would rather not look at. It changes them into something more.
She looked at a moldy pillow sitting beside her on the shelf. She huffed while pushing it away, and it went tumbling to the floor with a wet plop.
More compelling, I'd say. You get to break the monotony and forget how small you are.
I'm perfectly comfortable with how small I am. Thanks.
What a winner. I'm sure your girlfriend shares the same sentiment.
That's a bold assumption. And was there a point to you grudge calling up there, or are you just trying to harass me?
I like having the high ground. and I wanted to give you a bit of friendly advice. Well, don't leave me in suspense, Obi-Wan. Who's that? He's... never mind. What is it? She sighed and slowly lowered herself down the shelf, creaking under her weight as she did, so she lowered her voice to a whisper. Don't eat the food. What? She hissed this time, speaking a little louder. Do not eat the food. I didn't want to sound like a broken record, but I was really confused. What? Ah, you insufferable little man. This is why I am a widow. Forget it. She sighed and rubbed her 8 eyes. The mannequin wanted me to pass this on to you. She pulled out a pair of pink flower clippers from seemingly nowhere. Go to Garden and Live Goods. He's waiting for you there. Avoid the big flower. She handed me the clippers and tisked, dumbass. Thanks, I guess. I eyed the clippers. They made a satisfying snipping sound when I pulled the handles. Don't mention it. In typical spider fashion, she creeped back up the shelf and disappeared over the other side. If every spider is as rude as she is, I don't know if I feel quite as bad as I used to when I would bring a shoe down on them. I stuck the clippers into my apron and began to head in the direction I was pretty sure was the garden. That was an amazing story. Honestly, I am just so privileged to be given the right to read these stories. The people through r/no sleep, I cannot thank you all enough for the amount of time you have given me in relation to reading stories that you have put your hearts and souls into. I also want to thank those in the horror community, just very quickly. I've almost hit 200 subscribers at the time of recording this, and it doesn't sound like a lot in the long spectrum, but it's a big milestone that I could be reaching, and I appreciate every single one of you that have helped me with this, including those who have jumped on and subscribed. But anyway, I won't hold you back any longer. Remember, this is part 1 of a 3-part series, so I will be putting through the other 2 shortly. But alternately, please stay safe, have a good day or night wherever you are, and this is Grim signing off.